drifters. Drifters are pretty difficult to kill. You really need a pretty good balance of tank, DPS, newt or cap stability, and you don't necessarily need a method of escape, but you do need to get on top of him so that you can tackle him so that he doesn't warp away. He has a warp core stability of 3, which means even a faction scram would not hold him down. You'd have to have at least one more point on him. So yeah, getting on top of him is pretty important so that you can hold him down and he doesn't warp off. He does 1600 DPS, which isn't a whole lot for end-game mechanics. We go over here and we look at some of the other C6 class sites, and you've got 2000 DPS here, 3500 here. Yeah, we're working up to almost 5000 DPS in some of these waves. 6000 DPS in this wave. This is a relic signature, so I'd expect it to be a little bit higher. So, comparatively speaking, he doesn't do as much damage as some of the C6 sites. However, he does newt really, really hard. And so, keeping your tank running while he's newting you is pretty important. So I set off to figure out how to deal with this particular character, because if you're running a lot of esters or something, he has a tendency of swapping targets, and that has been a pretty big downside as of recently. So I know a lot of Wormhole Corps have stopped fighting him altogether because he changes targets so much. So I only have 2 characters that I can really work with, and I really wanted to find a way to kill him. So I jumped on the test server and I came up with this fit. So we've got a lot of cap transfers. We've got 6 of them. This is on a Rattlesnake. I've got 2 Guest X shield boost amplifiers, a Pith X large shield booster, and this brings my tank up to 2035 EHP per second, which is a little overkill, but it's good to have that extra buffer if you start to go down and you need to rep back up really fast. So that was important to me. DPS doesn't really matter a whole lot. It's just going to take you longer to burn them down. So you don't really need the omnidirectional tracking enhancer either. It will help with some DPS as well, though. So we're going to be running 2 of these Rattlesnakes, and this is the run. Now, this in total took me about an hour and 10 minutes. When I first got into the wormhole, you'll see that I was separated from my character. Let's just skip ahead here for a second. Yeah, I was 16 kilometers away from my other Rattlesnake here. That doesn't help. And I discovered that closing in on him was a really difficult task, because he kept running away. I'm sure there's a better way of getting on top of him. I eventually managed to do it, but a lot of that had to do with the grapple, managing the grapple properly. I also had to figure out how much capacitor I could realistically transfer between the two characters when he's actually neuting me. So, yeah, I ran into a lot of capacitor problems where I was juggling between the two characters, and him switching back and forth really wasn't helping either. So, yeah, as you can see, I got really far down there. I'm still, here we are, half an hour into the fight. I'm still 9,000 kilometers away from him, which is absolutely insane. I should not be that far away from him. I should be right up on top of him. So we come using the Grappler and overloading it, we managed to get a lot closer to him. We're right on top of him now. But this is just a little bit later in the fight here. And once I'm right up on top of him, he actually stopped switching. And so basically what I would do is on the character that was being attacked, which is not Pithum, I turned off one of my capacitor transfers, and I could leave the whole scenario just like that. And so for the next 45 minutes or so, I just burned him down. But yeah, he didn't change targets once after I got on top of him, which was pretty awesome. And for an hour's worth of work, that's worth exactly 300 million ISK. So in this recording that I just made, I know I made a lot of mistakes. One of them was that I was using geckos, and geckos are fine for things like structure down here where you only have 150,000 EHP to cut through, and none of it has any kind of resistance whatsoever. But when you're talking about armor, you really need to be using paraders, or if you're using shields, you need to be using hammerheads. So that'll cut quite a bit of time off if you're doing that correctly. So just a little tip and trick there for you. Cut some time off of your drifter response battleship kills.